I see a lot of videos where people are doing some really cool things to their cars, but make me a little bit nervous. And sometimes that leads to some problems that they have down the road. And that is when they take something really cool, like some modern electronics, and retrofit them onto their, their classic 60s or 70s muscle car. But they take, digital wiring, for instance, for a computer, and splice it into their 50-year-old wiring harness. And then sometimes that leads to problems down the road, and they spend a lot of time trying to figure out why. And the reason why is you've got, state-of-the-art modern electronics that's designed to work on reliable and stable and clean power sources plugged into a very old and likely degraded wiring harness. And so doing a lot of stuff on this car like that. My fuel injection is an example, the LED lighting that I'm using for my headlights and taillights and side marker lights, my stereo, and so forth. And so I don't want to see this thing go up in smoke on the side of the road. So I figured I'd put together a video and show you what my solution to this problem is going to look like. It's going to take me a while to get there. And over the life of the restoration here, it'll get done as I finish parts of the car. So it's not going to happen overnight, but I've got a new wiring harness for this car, and let me take you inside the car and show you why I started thinking in this direction to begin with. So with the dashboard out of the way in the car, I've got great access to the wiring harness, and I needed to do that because I'm going to replace the wiring harness, and there are a lot of reasons why I'm going to do it, but I guess the thing that really pushed me in the direction of replacing the harness was my memories of previous Mustang 2s I've owned, where I've had to do something as simple as replace a blown fuse. And why is that especially difficult? Well, it shouldn't be. The fuse box uses the old school tube style fuses with the little piece of lead that melts inside them. And they're relatively easy to pop in and out. But the problem on this car is the location, the factory location of the fuse box. Reposition myself so I can get a little closer in here. But there are 3 holes in the firewall. This one down here is where the steering shaft goes through. This one right here is where the brake actuator that connects to the backside of the master cylinder goes. And then this one up here behind the gas pedal is where the fuse box goes. And so when the fuse box is in place, this thing sits behind the gas pedal up there. It's a really awkward place to get it. I mean, if you think about it, the steering shaft and the brake actuator are 2 things that you normally can't get at. So is the wiper motor, and the fuse box is even higher up behind the dash than those things. And this is a 70s style car, which means the seats are mounted down low, the dash sits down low. The position you have to contort your body into just to gain access to the fuse box, that alone is worth looking at a different place to put it. And the wire itself is in bad condition, more than 40 years old. Wire deteriorates over time and makes you look in the direction of replacing it anyway. Now, they didn't just do a bad job positioning the fuse box on the inside of the car. This right here is the firewall side. I've got the entire engine harness inside the car with me here, and this is where it passes through. So this plugs into the back side of the fuse box, and it sits in the engine compartment like this, and you can see the wires are all folded over on themselves, and they go through this metal bracket. So if you were looking at the firewall, you'd be looking at the driver, and to the right of the frame right now would be the driver's side of the car. So the engine sits right here, and so they had to put this permanent twist and steel bracket here to hold the wires and pinch them out of the way, because they come out of the firewall in a bad place. And so they're permanently kinked like this. Now, wire when it's new is really, really pliable. You can take a new wire harness, for instance, and twist it around your finger with no issues. But as the wire gets older, it becomes more brittle over time, and that's a natural result of the heat cycling. Every time current flows through a wire, the wire warms up, and then when the current stops, the wire cools down. And over the life cycle of the wire, it embrittles the copper and makes the wiring more prone to breakage. Most of it is stranded wire, but as strands break over time, that means there's less conductor to carry the current, and overall temperature will go up in the remaining strands as strands break away. And so it's not all that uncommon for electrical fires to break out in older cars due to deteriorated wiring. And so I'm going to replace this entire harness. And before I do, I'm very pleased to see, you can see the condition of the metal up under the dash. Really, the biggest reason I pulled the dash out in the heater box was so I could get a look at the structure back here, and I've pulled this insulation back, and there is no rust at all on this backside, not even in the cowl area, which is a well-known corrosion place on these cars. So I've really gotten lucky that this area is solid structurally. So I'm going to pull the factory insulation out, and I'll treat and paint the back side of the firewall, put some new sound deadening material on it, and then I'll start to install the new wire harness before I put the heater box and the dash back in place. But let me pause the video right here, and I'll get out my new harness and I'll show you what I'm doing there. All right, laid out in front of me, I have my new wiring harness, and this is basically the car and the engine harness together. I have some other separate things like the fuel injection harness, transmission, and stuff like that. But this is the bulk of the harness here. I bought it from a company called JohnnyLawMotors.com. And it looks to me like it's a painless kit that's been tailored specific to a mid-70s car. So for instance, it comes with a high current part of the kit, which includes the wiring harness for the alternator that has to be built up. It's got these connectors that you can build up for it. It also comes with the headlight connectors pre-wired. One down in here. Brand new headlight connectors pre-wired. So it does have some things that are specific to 70s cars, like the foot switch for actuating the high-low beam, or switching between high and low beam. It comes with a new ignition switch, but I'm not going to use this one because I want to keep the one that's in the car. I want to keep it keyed with the original key as best I can. It does come also with a new headlight switch, although I'll probably stay with the stock switch there as well. Well, a new one, but the same style as the stock switch. And I'll just graft the connector for the original OEM headlight switch. I'll just connect that to the new harness. But the biggest reason that I chose this particular harness is the fuse block here. Now, it just mounts with 2 screws here and here, and if you've got some space behind it, then you could either move the wires to the side, maybe space it out a little bit with some studs or something. Or you could mount it, say, up under the dash and just let this run behind it. The point is I can put it wherever I want it, and I can put it somewhere where it's easy to get it. Now they've done some brilliant work here, especially in identifying different circuits that you would need to use. So they've got them grouped into 3 sections. The first 4 up here are ignition. The middle ones are keyed accessory, and then the ones down here are battery hot. So the battery hot are things like the dome light, the auxiliary power. Of course, it was originally a cigar lighter in this car, but it'll be auxiliary power. Horn, flashers, brake switch, headlights. And so those are all on battery hot. And then the keyed, you've got a few accessories here, but then you've got power seats and power windows. Don't have either currently, but I am going to put power windows in, so there's a circuit already for that. Heater for the blower motor, that'll work with the AC as well. Wipers, radio accessory, and then headlights. And then for the ignition, you've got your gauges, your fan, electric fans, fuel pump, and that's it for those 3. So there's 15 total circuits. It even comes with the flashers for the hazards and the turn signals and a headlight relay. And the cover pops off and you can see that they are modern blade style fuses. It even comes with a few spares stored in the box for you. So all 15 circuits are pre-wired, and the cover just snaps on to protect it. They're all pre-wired, and the amazing thing is, I'm not sure if I can get close enough for you to see it, but this wire right here says choke fuel. And so that is part of which circuit was it? One of the ignition circuits says choke fuel, 20 amp fuse. And so this is the wire that's powered by that particular circuit. And the identification is contained along the length of the entire wire. So if I cut it short, I'm not going to lose this. It's repeated throughout the length of the wire, and the whole harness is like that. Maybe you can see down in here some of the wires are identified. Like, what's this big yellow one? This is shaved door handles. Well, I don't have shaved door handles, but I'll figure out something I can use that for, because that is a battery hot, so it's also the headlight power. So this takes the guesswork out of everything. It's all identified. Many of the circuits are pre-terminated in standard connectors. Others are have connectors on them, and others are cut to fit, and then you add the connectors as necessary. But everything I need to do a basic 15 circuit wiring harness on the car is here. And so this will serve as a starting point for everything that I need to do. And it's brand new. And so I don't have to worry about deteriorated wiring causing heat or other issues that could lead to an electrical fire and lose the whole thing. So I've got a lot of other systems on the car that will integrate with this, like my fuel injection, as I mentioned. My transmission's a TKX. The TKX uses Ford factory components for the vehicle speed sensor, for the reverse lights, for the neutral safety switch, and all of those are brand new Ford switches that I'll be able to wire into and integrate into this harness, along with my stereo, my touchscreen navigation display, and of course, I think in one of my previous videos I showed the wiring harness for the gauges, because they're all electrical gauges. So there's an instrument panel side of that harness, and then there's a car side of that harness, and the car side of that harness is going to integrate with this primary harness. And so all the wiring in the car will be new right up to the individual components. And even some of the components like my taillights here, my taillights are going to be LED. I'll have a video on that, but I'm converting it so that all 3 panels will be red. But I'm not going to do like most people do and leave the, put the red cover on, but leave it so it's a goofy split between a turn signal and a backup light. I'm going to replace this, so this will be a complete third light. And I've got a progressive lighting circuit or controller for it. I've already built it up and tested it. It works great. When you hit the brakes, it'll light this one, then that one rapidly, and they'll all come on. But it also does it when you put on the turn signal. When I put on the right turn signal, for instance, it'll go inboard, middle, outboard, inboard, middle, outboard, inboard, middle, outboard, and it'll continue to do that as it flashes on both sides. And then for the reverse light, I've got a LED light, white light that I'm going to recess into the metal directly below this light assembly. So I'll have the reverse light that way. And so all of that wiring is new as well. The side marker lights are going to be LED. The headlights are going to be the Holley Retro Bright LEDs, which use a stock harness. So I'll be able to plug my new harness right into those lights. So if you're interested in a kit like this, I paid somewhere around $300 or so for this, maybe a little more. I don't remember exactly what it was, but well worth it to give me the flexibility to wire all of the different things I want to in the car without having to splice them into, a 45 plus year old wire harness. I can do it all new right from the start. And of course, I'll be making my own wiring diagrams as I do this so that if I need to troubleshoot it and repair it later, I'll be able to. So if you're interested in a new wiring harness for your car, I hope this gave you a little bit of information that might make you think about why you should or shouldn't, or help you in that decision-making process. I'm not sponsored, so I'm not going to tell you one way or the other when it comes to Johnny Law Motors. That's just where I got my harness from. They've got a million harnesses for a bunch of different cars. Like I said, my opinion is it looks an awful lot like a painless wiring harness, so maybe that's who their supplier is. I'm not sure. Of course, you could buy directly from Painless. If you're restoring a vehicle that's relatively common, like a Mustang, a 60s or 70s Mustang, or a Camaro or Corvette, certainly there are a ton of suppliers out there that could get you a new harness. But it's not for every project. You've got to be willing to take the car apart to a certain level to get at a lot of the parts of the wiring harness. So the engine harness itself might be a little straightforward, but if you're talking about the rest of the car, especially the wiring that goes from under the dash to the back of the car, that's a big ordeal. And so it may or may not be right for your project. But something to consider. I hope this video helped in some way, and thank you for watching.